Hello, everybody out in Maryland's beautiful 8th Congressional District. It's your congressman coming at you on Friday for my favorite time of the week. It is Local Hero, and I have got such a great local hero for you. It is Montgomery County's own Susan Esserman. Ambassador Susan Esserman was the Deputy U.S. Trade Representative. She currently heads up the trade practice at Steptoe, the law firm in Washington, but she's had a very distinguished career in public life as the general counsel at the U.S. Department of Commerce and general counsel at the Trade Representative. She's a great trade intellectual, but we're recognizing her because this is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and Ambassador Esserman has been a very devoted volunteer and activist on behalf of victims of human trafficking, and she started the center at the University of Maryland, the SAFE Center for Human Trafficking Survivors. That stands for, let's see if I can remember, support, advocacy, freedom, and empowerment of human trafficking survivors. And it is a pioneering and unique organization in Maryland and really across the country because it combines direct service for people who are victims of human trafficking, legal services, medical services, mental health services, job and economic empowerment services, with research and advocacy on the problem generally. So for everything you've done on behalf of people who are victims of human trafficking, Ambassador Esserman, we want to recognize you and salute you as our local hero here in the month of January.
Well, thank you so much, Jamie. I so appreciate it, but it's I who want to thank you for your truly heroic efforts to preserve our democracy, for your leadership, for your compassion, and your passionate service to our country. It is truly inspiring.
Well, that's kind of you to say. You have violated the only rule of local hero, which is you're not allowed to turn it around, but I do appreciate what you're saying. So look, let's start with this, because you've had this, like sensational career on trade policy, but how did you get interested originally in the problem of human trafficking, and when did that start?
It started about over a decade ago, and it's when I began to take on pro bono legal representations of sex and labor trafficking survivors. And I was very drawn and deeply affected by the work, given the severe nature of the circumstances and the brutal trafficking. And then I began to receive more and more referrals of trafficking cases from Maryland, actually Montgomery County and Prince George's County. I was stunned by the prevalence of labor trafficking in our backyard. People usually think of this as something in some remote region. And I quickly began to realize that providing legal services alone was not sufficient, that you needed a holistic approach to enable traffickers to overcome the trauma of their trafficking. And it is with that idea that I approached university with the idea of the SAFE Center.
And does the SAFE Center focus on Maryland, or is it a national focus you have?
Well, that's the SAFE Center began with a focus on this region, the metropolitan region, Montgomery County, where a significant portion of our clients come from, Prince George's County, the whole state. But the drivers of trafficking are not only local, but national and especially international. And so as we mature and grow, we really want to be focusing on scaling our impact and on addressing some of these international drivers. After all, there's a bit of an intersection with my past international life and some of my anti-trafficking work. But
well, give us a sense of the scope and dimension of the problem. I mean, how many people are we talking about being trafficked every year into the United States? And is this a problem that is increasing, or we're getting on top of it now?
I am going to disappoint you by not giving you good numbers, because there are no good numbers for the extent of trafficking in the United States, because for starters, as you can appreciate, trafficking is often hidden from views. But to answer your broader question, over 2 decades ago, we had a really strong foundational law and treaty, the Palermo Protocol, UN treaty to combat trafficking. We've made a lot of progress since then. But the concern is trafficking globally is not only not abated, it's increased in recent years, where the most recent estimates by the International Labor Organization is that nearly 29 million people around the world are trafficked or trapped in trafficking. It's a pretty stunning number.
And are you able to get a sense of the distinction between sex trafficking and into prostitution and other forms of sexual exploitation versus labor trafficking? Or do you consider it kind of one conglomerate assault on people's?
Well, in a sense, they are similar, because trafficking really is extreme and degrading human exploitation. And it is when the traffickers force victims to work against their will, where the traffickers make them feel that they cannot leave without suffering harm. So in that sense, that is the commonality. And in a sense, all sex and labor trafficking are forced labor. But I'm glad you asked about labor trafficking. It is more prevalent, 3 times more prevalent globally, but it is grossly underinvestigated and under-prosecuted. And that is one of our big focuses at the SAFE Center. And maybe I'll just tell you, we do provide bilingual comprehensive services, legal, social services, mental health, economic empowerment. And economic empowerment is a centerpiece of our work, because a stable job is critical to independence and empowerment. And we have some phenomenal Montgomery County partners that I would like to give a shout out to. Our corporate partners, Marriott, with whom we have worked to conduct a hospitality training program for our survivors, and Tista Tech, which has provided scholarships, apprenticeships, and I'm really very happy to say has recently hired 2 of our clients into IT jobs. But that's the essence of our work. We're also broadly involved in prevention, and labor trafficking is a huge focus, where I'm working with others, especially in the state, to figure out how we can bring all these different sectors together to better investigate trafficking, labor trafficking situations. About 1/3 of our cases involve labor trafficking survivors. And as I said, a significant portion of our clients are from Montgomery County. We've served over 300 survivors and their families since we opened up 6 years ago. As you'd expect, 90% of our clients are women and girls, primarily Black and Latina, as you can appreciate, since systemic racism makes these women more vulnerable to trafficking. So again, 2/3, 1/3, we have 1/3 of our cases labor trafficking.
Give us a sense, if you would, Susan, of like a particular case that comes to mind, or a family that's been trafficked, or young, just to kind of humanize it for us.
I'm going to tell you about my very first case, because she came to me when she thought her trafficker was sitting across the street and was going to repossess her. She was brutally suffering from sex trafficking. She was trafficked up and down the I-94 corridor, forced to have sex 35 times a day. And if she did not hand over a certain amount of money per week, she would be brutally beaten. So that is actually a pattern that we see that goes through Montgomery County.
If people believe that they know someone who's being trafficked, or they're aware of a trafficking operation, should they call the police? Should they get in touch with SAFE at the University of Maryland, or what's the first thing they should do?
I think that the first thing they should do is get in touch with the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And then, they can also call the SAFE Center as well. But the good thing about the hotline is they're receiving a lot of these reports and can put it into context, and then they make referrals. The one thing people should never do is try to interfere on their own. That's dangerous.
Well, we're living in a time of such sharp economic disparities and contrast, and there's just millions and millions and millions of vulnerable people all over the world, and a lot of them get caught up in this, oftentimes through smuggling and then human trafficking and directly into criminal underworld and organizations. So we want to salute you for working so hard to combat this problem at the policy level, but also working right here locally in Maryland, in Montgomery County, to help people get out of this terrible situation. So for that reason, Susan, you're our local hero this week, and we want to salute you for everything you do.
Thank you. And if I might just say at the very end, if you give me one more moment, I want to thank some of our Montgomery County partners, the Jody Finkelstein, who heads the Montgomery County Prevention Committee, Debbie Feinstein, who is a prosecutor and just has great nuanced sense of trafficking. Want to thank the university leaders who have made this all possible. And also my law firm, Steptoe & Johnson, who so generously let me devote so much of my time and has a tremendous anti-trafficking program itself. So thank you, Jamie, for shining a light on human trafficking during Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And thank you for all you do.
And I know your compatriots. I know Jody. I know Debbie. I am so appreciative of everything that all of you do and the SAFE Center is doing. So thank you. And we know that you accept this recognition for a whole community of people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.